From Wish TV, here's the latest from 24-Hour News 8.
We want to interrupt your programming to bring you continued special coverage of the funeral services and processions for IMPD Chief Deputy Jim Waters. The procession had left Bankers Life Fieldhouse within the past hour or so, and now we believe that they're headed off to the East District headquarters along Washington Street is where that procession followed. 24-Hour News 8's Elizabeth Choi is there at the East District with more. Elizabeth?
Bennett, I'm going to step out of the way so we can give our viewers an opportunity to see what's happening right now. You can see the first bit of police presence passing through for the first time this afternoon. This is the beginning of the procession. You can see a large police presence, motorcycles, and on the other side of those motorcycles, officers with their lights on. We have mounted officers on their horses as well. Those officers all represent IMPD East District, where we know that Deputy Chief Waters was commander here at IMPD East District, so that's the significance of passing through this area. He was commander from 2011 through 2014. I'm also told there will be a special, what they call a pass-through ceremony. They have recently unveiled underneath the easel, there was a blanket covering a large photo of Deputy Chief Waters. They recently unveiled that in honor of him. They tell me that this pass-through ceremony will be some kind of brief pause. We don't know exactly what to expect, but of course we'll be out here. We're watching things as they're happening, and we are going to bring that information to you as it's happening. But as you can see now, we've got police from Whitestown. I saw police from Fort Wayne. The overwhelming, impressive, really beautiful show of support from the community. People have been lining up for hours now just to get a glimpse of these cars passing through. We have IFD. They have rather elaborate display set up on East Washington Street with two aerial trucks and their ladders raised in the air to make sort of an archway for the cars to pass through. But really just an outpouring show of support for Chief Deputy Waters, and I think that it says something, or Deputy Chief Waters, I should say. I think it really says something about the impact he had on this community.
Elizabeth, there are people who are gathered along the outside of not only the East District there, but that also houses the ROC, the Regional Operations Center. So are those folks who are well-wishers and mourners from the community, or are those folks who work there in the East District?
Bennett, it's a variety of people out here. You know, obviously a large police presence, obviously a large presence from law enforcement. We have IFD out here, police from all over the state, really. They're just past an Indiana University police car, so from all over. But these people, we had a group of people from the YMCA nearby. They had a stand set up and poster board that said, "Well done, good and faithful servant," which I think has a twofold meaning. It speaks to Deputy Chief Waters' career, what he dedicated his life to professionally as a servant to this community, as law enforcement. And we've heard numerous stories over and over of how he put everyone else's lives above his, and how he had the ability to make you feel like you were the only person on earth just speaking to him, and how he mentored other officers. But it also speaks to his faith. His preacher spoke at the funeral. We heard Brenna talk about that earlier today. He was a man of God, Christian, believed in Jesus Christ. And so that sign from the YMCA, "Well done, good and faithful servant," also speaks to his faith as well. And then we have people from the community. I spoke to a guy he's been here a good 2 hours now, and he happened to meet Deputy Chief Waters as he was applying for IMPD, and he had explained to me off camera that didn't work out for him, but he remained in touch with Deputy Chief Waters, and Waters continued to mentor him and help him through his career. He was one of the first people out here on the scene, and just felt a need to really want to show his support and his appreciation for the life that Waters lived.
Elizabeth, that's another touching, telling story about Chief Waters' legacy, Deputy Chief Waters' legacy. It mimics one that we've heard throughout the morning. Joining me now on set is Deputy Chief Gary Woodruff with Lawrence Police. And Gary, if you could just talk about the images that the viewers are seeing now on the screen as these officers from a variety of departments pass through and pay their respects. Not atypical. Sure, not just agencies from Marion County, but throughout central Indiana, and really all parts of even IMPD. You know, you see the mounted patrol there, other officers. There's a lot of other workers there at the Regional Operating Center, the Rock. Sure. And it gives them the opportunity to pay those tribute and respect to Chief Waters, even though they weren't necessarily able to go to the funeral. So it's a wonderful way to afford that opportunity. And Elizabeth mentioned the large police presence that's there at the East District, but you also mentioned that there were a lot of community members there as well. Sure. I noticed the Lawrence Township trustee there, and you know, was a great friend of law enforcement, and great many community members there on the east side. Again, Chief Waters was that relationship builder. And that's a model that many of us, you know, continue to emulate and carry that legacy forward as well. Help our viewers understand. There might be folks at home that might not know what a pass-through ceremony is. That's what we're anticipating seeing at the East District. Well, this is one of the differences between the line of duty death proceedings and the honors that are afforded there. And a situation like Chief Waters, again, he's afforded a great many of the honors and ceremonial recognition, but there are a few differences from that situation to a line of duty death, and this is one of them. And this would be something similar to the 1042 ceremony that we hear in the line of duty death, but they may not necessarily apply in this in Chief Waters' case. But again, this is a special moment to be able to, you know, not only recognize his career, his legacy at the East District, and also afford the employees and workers there the opportunity to pay their final respects as well. And you mentioned that final roll call, just to help folks at home understand. Deputy Chief Waters was struck by a semi more than a week ago as he was trying to remove debris from the roadway. He was in a city-owned vehicle, but at the time, he was off duty, which is why you're saying, I guess, there'll be a little bit difference in the traditions here. You do see a few differences. Ultimately, it's about what the family's wishes are. Right. The memorial team works with the family and identifies their wishes and tries to carry those out. There are some special things that are reserved for line of duty deaths, although, as we were talking earlier, when you're in the chief's office at whatever agency, I don't know if you're ever really truly off duty. It's true. Yeah, you could easily make the argument that in a high top brass position like that this is not a job, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, it's a calling, and if you're doing it well, yeah, you're connected 24/7, and so Chief Waters did it well, and you know, he was serving even at the moment that he was struck by the semi, his vehicle was struck. You know, he's continuing to serve the public in that moment. I want to go back out to Elizabeth, who has been standing at East District all morning, and get her perspective on what she's seeing currently, the folks who have gathered out there as this pass-through ceremony continues at East District.
Bennett, we are just seeing a lot of support. I don't know how else to say it. It's really quite amazing, the number of law enforcement from all over the state. When I got here earlier this morning, I saw a police car from Fort Wayne, from Carmel. We just saw in the procession Indiana University, a strong sign of support. We also have IFD surrounding the perimeter of IMPD East District. I mentioned 2 aerial trucks that sort of have their ladders arched over East Washington Street. So as the cars pass through, that's their way of showing support. Gary was talking sort of about the difference between an officer who dies in the line of duty versus one who dies not in the line of duty. And I'm told that IFD rather would lower a flag for the cars to pass through if in fact the officer dies in the line of duty. I know earlier this morning we thought they would lower a flag. We're told they won't because of that difference, that he did not die in the line of duty. But you can see on the sidewalks the community just lined up. Some of these people have been out here for hours. I know I mentioned the first person who was out here, he had a close, sort of by chance relationship with Deputy Chief Waters when he met him as he was applying to get on IMPD, and for whatever reasons that didn't work out for him. But he said Waters continued to mentor him, continued to stay in touch with him, continued to offer him advice and professionally, personally. And I really just, you know, we've heard the stories over and over about this was a man who was led by faith, a man who was personable and truly cared about people above anything else, about people's feelings, families. And I think that this is really just a testament of that. And I think that that's why you're really seeing this overwhelming, this show of support out here.
What you see is, we've been talking to you, we've been listening to you, is a number of what appear to be IMPD patrol cars now passing through East District. And Gary, I want to get your sense on this. It might feel like we're overstating the obvious, but a lot of these vehicles either have a black band on the badge on the side of the car, or they've got a black decal on the antenna. You've got a black,
sure.
A black strap across your badge today. Talk about the significance of that and how it pays respect to a fallen officer in a situation like this.
Well, it indicates your agency, your profession is observing a period of mourning, and it is a show of respect to, you know, the fallen. And in addition to Chief Waters, you know, sadly we're also mourning another loss to the community in Southport. So there's dual purpose here.
And that's true. You mentioned Lieutenant Aaron Allen, who lost his life, was fatally shot last week while responding to a crash. It's different circumstances than Deputy Chief Waters' death, but both difficult in that, you know, if history's any guide, and we do have to have these officer funerals. We've, as you mentioned, we've unfortunately had these. You've attended too many, as you've said.
Right.
But it's got to be doubly difficult to have to deal with two of these in a week's time.
Sure, it does compound the matters, but you want to pay the proper respects to each individual, also to the legacy, the life and legacy of Chief Waters, and then, you know, Lieutenant Allen's moments will come in the coming days. But, you know, there's dual purpose in the wearing of the badge covers and with the displays on the police vehicles with the black flags. It doesn't indicate an agency, a profession, really, in mourning.
And that's what's difficult. And we talked about the difference between in a line of duty death and dying outside a line of duty death. It might just be a footnote today, a technicality, given all the stories that we've heard about his life, his legacy, his characteristics as a person.
It makes the situation, the Chief Waters situation, no less critical, no less important. It just means that there are some distinctions that are reserved for line of duty deaths. But the memorialization here, the services for Chief Waters have been really extraordinary and fitting for such a wonderful public servant.
And the stories shared, obviously a testament to that legacy.
Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier about, you know, we talk about his ability to create policy, to enact change, to build that to fruition. Are there any stories that you have of Deputy Chief Waters that you recall that people haven't heard today?
Well, sure. We have a very close mutual friend who lost a very dear loved one, and that friend asked for myself, Chief Waters, and another officer to join him to identify what can be done to address some of the situations that led to this person's passing. And part of that was due to the opioid epidemic. The opioid epidemic. And you know, we wanted to identify some solutions that we could take, some action that could be taken within the community to prevent those circumstances from occurring again. You know, out of some of those, and that's a personal meeting. You know, these are our four friends that are getting together that care about the community, and while mourning the loss of a loved one, you know, you want to take action as well. That's a story that just the four of us would know about, if I'm not counting it today. Of course, I'm not using names.
Right. But another sign of his legacy is we've watched the hearse of Deputy Chief Jim Waters now pass through the East District. We talked earlier about just sort of the images being more powerful than any words we could share. As you can see, more people paying their respects to Deputy Chief Waters. This is at the IMPD's East District, where Waters served as commander for 3 years before moving up to be assistant chief within the department and then deputy chief under the latest administration. We're going to continue to follow this procession as it makes its way to Crown Hill Cemetery. And of course, we'll bring you updates on air and online. And we'll have Deputy Chief Gary Woodruff here as well to provide some insight. We now want to return you to regular programming.